Salvete discipuli. All right, today we're just going to review the grammar from lesson 50, and you will be ready for a quiz tomorrow. Okay, so take good notes on this. Make sure you learn, you memorize the things I tell you to memorize. Okay, the first thing we studied in lesson 50 was disappearing ink. Amazing. Was deponent verbs. All right, what do you need to know about deponent verbs? You need to know that they depono, they set aside or lay aside their passive meanings. What does that mean? That means that deponent verbs will often look passive. All right, notice I say look passive, but they will always be active. So when you look at a deponent verb and you're like, hey, that's a passive ending, well, who cares? It's going to be translated actively anyway. Okay, so the next question, the logical question should be, how do I know if a verb is deponent? Because when I see a passive ending, I don't want to just automatically assume it's active. That's crazy. So how do I know if a verb is deponent? You have to be able to see the dictionary entry. All right, or have it memorized, one of the two. The dictionary entry of a deponent verb will always have a first part ending in OR. It will always have a second part ending in I. A lot of times this will be an RI. That's not guaranteed. What is guaranteed is the first part of a dictionary entry of a deponent verb ends in OR. The second part ends in I. That is how you spot a deponent verb. The second you know a verb comes from a dictionary entry like this, you know it's deponent, you know it might look passive, but it will always be active. All right, that's what you need to remember for tomorrow. Any questions? None. Okay, good. Let's move on. Okay, what's the other thing you need to know? You need to know that these new special place constructions. Special place constructions. Okay, we're going to start with some that don't really follow any specific rules or just kind of exceptions that are floating around out there. If you want to say in the country, as in the non-city, right? That's what I mean by country. All right, we're not talking about a nation state here. We're just talking about a place that's not the city. You know, a place where there are cows and horses and whatever else is out in the country. I don't even know. In the country, you will simply write Rory. R-U-R-I. That's it. You don't have to put the word in. You'll just write Rory. So this is tricky. You got to be on the lookout for this, because it's very easy to see this and to not be thinking about the word in. You just need to be aware that Rory all by itself can mean in the country. One more example like this. If you want to say in the home, or maybe at home, that is simply going to be domi. Domi all by itself without any preposition in Latin is going to mean in home or at home. All right, any questions? I didn't think so. Moving on. Woohoo! Okay, special place constructions. Special place constructions, besides applying to those two exceptions we just mentioned, also apply to any cities, towns, and small islands. Not medium-sized ones, definitely not large ones, but small islands. What makes an island small, medium, or large? I don't know. Moving on. Cities, towns, and small islands, you can talk about location with regard to these, like to Rome, or from Rome, or in Rome, without using prepositions in Latin. Okay, so cities, towns, and small islands, will they have Latin prepositions? No! No, no. Okay, so what happens? with cities, towns, and islands, you have to know the dictionary entry, or you have to know what declension a word belongs to. Okay? For example, if I want to say in Rome, okay, we're going to use what's called the locative case because it tells you the location. Okay? In Rome, locative case, the location. Rome happens to be either a first or second declension singular place, okay, because the dictionary entry goes Roma, Romae. That's obviously first declension, it's obviously singular. So to say in Rome, we would simply say Romae, which ultimately looks like the genitive. Okay, so this is really weird. If it's a first or second declension singular place name, to say in Rome, in other words, to give the locative, you would simply say, or you would simply use the genitive form of the word, Romae. Okay? That's kind of funky stuff, but there you have it. Well, what if it is not a first or second declension singular place name? What if it's like a third declension place name or a second declension plural name? Okay? So for all that are not first or second declension singular, all ones that are not, you're going to use the ablative case to say where something happened. So let's consider Atenae, Atenarum. Okay, that is a our first declension plural place name. Why is it plural? It just is. But it is in English too. Athens, no surprise. So how do we say in Athens? How do we make the locative of Athens? Well, it's not first or second declension singular. So we're going to use the ablative form to say in Athens. The ablative form of Atenae is Atenis, right? Because it's plural, right? It's a plural form. So the ablative plural, is. So that's how you say in Athens. Atenis. All right? I'm going to keep this short today. So I'm going to move on. So hopefully we have a pretty good understanding of the locative. What do we need to memorize? We need to memorize that cities, towns, and small islands have special place constructions. The locative of first and second declension singular place names is the genitive. The locative of non-first, second declension singular is the ablative. In other words, it looks like the ablative. All right, so that's what I want you to know for sure. Only one more point coming your way, then we'll be done. Well, I lied. It's not really one. It's more like 3 points wrapped up into one. Sort of. Or maybe 2. Whatever. Anyway, what's next? If you want to say from a city, town, or small island, you are not going to use words like de or ab. Nope, you don't need them. You're simply going to use the ablative case of whatever place you're talking about. So if I were to say from Rome, I simply say Roma. That's it. Roma all by itself means from Rome. If I want to say to Rome, I'm not going to use the preposition ad. Boom. No need. I would simply take the word Roma and put it in the accusative and end up with Romam. Right? That's clearly an accusative. Okay? So if it's a city, town, or small island, and you want to say from, you're not going to use de or ab or anything like that. You're not going to use ex. You're simply going to put the word in the ablative case like we did here with Roma. If you want to say to a city, town, or small island, you're not going to use ad. You're not going to use in. You're simply going to put the word in the accusative case like we did with Roma. Okay? So cities, towns, small islands. From is ablative, to is accusative. That is all you need to know. Be ready for a quiz, be ready for a quiz, be ready for a quiz. Waleta.